Hello, my name is Gabriel, also known as Red, and this is a story of my life. What will be the visual for the rest of the video is my completion of the longest Geometry Dash level at 55 minutes and 22 seconds. Eon. I always wanted to do something for Eon. I wanted to do something unique and that would also make sitting through the entire completion a worthwhile experience. And so I decided to talk about my life. I don't think there are words to truly describe how unconventional my life is. I didn't really become conscious until I turned 16 years old. Everything before that feels like it's still there. Like I can grasp that it happened, but like it doesn't feel like I ever experienced them. Like I've dissociated from my past. Before I lived in New York, I lived in Pennsylvania, staying there until I was around 8 years old. I lived in a rural area, but despite that, I still managed to make like some friends. There was a kid one house down that I remember visiting like once or twice. Their house was weird. It felt so vertical. The house I used to live in was pretty big, but compared to the smaller apartment that I currently live in New York, it was still way cheaper. I do remember having some kids I would talk to, like on the bus or like sitting down in the gym waiting to be picked up. But after I moved to New York, it was obviously a reset button, but I would never really recover from this. Like it took way, and I mean way too long for me to find my identity. One of the first things I did is that I got into this new IP at Nintendo called Splatoon. I remember one kid at my elementary school played it and did play with me sometimes, but looking back at it, he did definitely try to hide the fact that he played with me or even played the game at all, which I remember made me feel ashamed to like Splatoon. Obviously, you know. Something I wish I experienced as a kid was having like more incentive to like go outside. The hobbies I had were pretty stationary. At the same age I got into Splatoon, I got into wrestling. And I made my closest friend up until that point. Me and him would watch wrestling together whenever it was possible. We pretended to be wrestlers. We would like wrestle in the living room. That was probably the best part of my preteen years, considering like friendships like that are what I want to experience now. And what I wish I experienced in my teenage years. You know, that like looking back now, the thing I sulk on the most is not being able to make the friendships that like got me places physically, because like I couldn't make these friendships because most of the friends I would make wouldn't last in the coming years, because I would switch middle schools 3 times in all the back-to-back years. Kids never liked me as in a single school that I was in, and in some cases even the adults, and I was bullied in every single school. I don't view myself as someone who was a perfect child. Definitely not. But I don't think I couldn't have been that insufferable either. In hindsight, it's fascinating how you can just instantly tell if an adult figure doesn't care about a children's safety or well-being. If their solution is to say to a child to ignore bullying, because kids don't have fully developed brains yet. Like, I could try to ignore the shitty things people have said or did as a kid myself, but it's never that simple. And just writing it off as like ignoring, like it leads to kids who grow up to be massive shitheads in life, or good kids who have been cursed with knowing the world is full of hatred. And while that is true, the world is definitely more full of hatred than it is not. Life doesn't have to be lived that way. I'll get into that later. As an adult, I absolutely hate children. You might know that about me. But I think it's because I hate the loud minority of kids who have like no respect or care or common sense. At least that's how many of my peers when I was a kid in life acted towards me. That's how it felt. I am sure not every kid is like this, but that's how I grew up feeling about kids my age. And of course, all kids aren't fully developed yet. And, you know, I usually can't stand kids at all. And I was a kid too. And I don't like how I used to be either. But I think for far different reasons than why I, currently hate kids. But, like, let's move away from that now. I played Splatoon ever since I got into it, and eventually I got into Minecraft, I believe by watching just the very old, like early 2010, mid 2010 Minecraft videos, like, you know the ones I'm talking about. And an older cousin of mine showed me a game on his phone called Geometry Dash. And Geometry Dash I wouldn't play for a while. Like, I played it the one time when my cousin showed me, and then I forgot about it for a few years. And then I discovered it again, and it was another game that I loved. And, you know, on another tangent, I'm not afraid to say I love Geometry Dash. To me, it's one of the greatest video games of self-expression and creativity. There are creations in this game that make me feel, I can't speak for everyone, they can be works of art, they can be abstract, they can be concrete, ambiguous, but most of all, they can be an outlet for a human being to express their emotions, in themselves, you know? To me, this is Geometry Dash's biggest strength. You're watching Eon right now. Eon, to me, isn't a level in a video game. To me, Eon is a journey, and Eon has become a marker for a new, like, era in my life. It marks moments. It marks my change. And, like, as for the design itself, it's simplistic and it's abstract, I feel like. And it's something I admire. And the song is a masterclass. I love this song to death. And I want to make my own level someday. I already have, but it's not rate-worthy. I would want to make something that is actually decorated and has just as much passion in it as I have for my previous projects. And I don't want it to be something that's just an idea of mine. I don't want it to be a symbolism of me, but I want it to be me. And this is a promise that I want to deliver far in the future. It's not going to be anytime soon. I already have plans, and they're not going to be ever, you know, completed until like maybe 2026 or 2027. So that's something I'm working forward to. It's something that has all my passion and love and tells the most important story in my life. So yeah, those are the three main games that I like, and that hasn't changed much at all in the past few years. I still play the same games, with some new ones sprinkled here and there. I have desperately tried to get into new games. Pressure from Roblox is a good example. I got into it by the request of a friend, and I had an addiction phase. My friend recommended Outer Wilds to me, and I tried to play it. I was recording it too, and then after like an hour, I just never touched it again. So like, I am extremely stubborn when it comes to new games, and I desperately do want to change this fact. It is unfortunate. Something that's probably obvious just by knowing me is that I love to be the center of attention, and this has been true for my entire life. I wasn't shy or afraid to speak my mind, and this is how I've always been. In my second middle school, one of the staff was an old work friend of my father, and as such, I would want to be in his office all the time, because I didn't have any other people my age who took me in. One of the things that he said was that I want to be the center of attention at every moment. I took offense at the time, because I was fucking young, but the obvious payoff to this is how I started live streaming on YouTube when I was 11. I feel like it's redundant to talk about how many kids, both past and present, have always fantasized of being famous on the internet when they got older. I was no exception. I started out when I was 11 by playing Geometry Dash on my phone. I did not have a computer back then. And 2 years later, when I do have a computer and a capture card, I would stream Splatoon 2 for the very first time. And this is after the final fest. So the 5.0 update, as well as my inherent child ability to have no responsibilities, boosted my streaming success to heights I've never sniffed since. Viewership is never something I care about now, but being a good streamer isn't just something you can do on your own. It's necessary to have chatters you can bounce off of too. That's something that apparently I was good at, because I would average more than 20 people per stream, and I actually had a consistent schedule, contrary to now. As speedrunning Minecraft became popular, I got into that too. My first completed speedrun was in October of 2020, which is 5 years ago now. Time really does fly. I never streamed Minecraft until my Splatoon phase ended, because honestly, Minecraft isn't that good of a streaming game. Like, I'll say it. First hot take that has ever spilled my mouth, I know. I streamed for the love of the game, and I still do. I do not do what I do for an algorithm or for money. I will find my income through a far more sustainable job. I never believed that pursuing content creation is sustainable. It's purely a hobby thing for me. I do it. I stream because games are no fun on my own most of the time. That's also why I've been able to take a break from streaming for so long up until this point, because behind the scenes, I have been playing with a lot more people while I take a much needed break. In the process of streaming, I built up an audience and I made close friends who I still think were the best friends I ever had. People like Rosique, Sunflower, and Nugs, just to name a very small few. By far the best era of my streaming career. And that's not to say I think modern day Redstone is bad or anything. I've grown up. I think I'm way more entertaining than I used to be. But it's just this era was the most fun and active. And this is where everyone had the most fun. And unfortunately it has dimmed since then. Not due to passage of time, but because of my own actions that served as cracks in the facade that hid how selfish of a person I was. I was raised well by my parents, but my parents couldn't keep track of me being online. Brief disclaimer, yes, parents should be on top of their children's internet usage, and if you plan to have kids in the future, I suggest keeping an eye on their online activities greatly so they don't end up like me. But anyways, I would never actively try to shit on people, but I would be very egocentric, and of course that happens with being a kid. But I never learned anything or got better until it was far too late. It was me at my worst, and I can't go into detail because I don't remember much of the detail, and additionally, I don't think anyone really wants me to go on about how horrible of a person I used to be. I just want you to believe me when I say it. And that's another thing. No one believes me. More often now, people don't even believe me when I say I used to be the most horrid person, that like I couldn't have been that bad. And it reminds me just how different of a person I am now versus no more than 3 years ago. Back then, I thought I was above other people, like they owed me, and if I wasn't satisfied with our friendship, I would get mad most of the time, and I'm downright impressed by young me's ability to not only manipulate, but attempt to manipulate and fail. The close friend group didn't grow too fond of me, obviously, and made a different server to get away from me, nearly everyone changing their demeanor toward me. Then eventually, they decided to ghost me entirely. Around the same time, I started my first year of high school, and I met my first real close friend. We had unofficially met each other the year beforehand, and found out we both liked Splatoon. However, I don't think we ever played Splatoon, because they were more involved in school than I was. And I guess at that, I can talk about school in general. I was good at school. I wasn't really involved. I always had A's or higher on all of my subjects, mainly due to fear of parental punishment. But school also wasn't that hard. School was more annoying for me than it was hard. Once I got to high school, sure it got harder, but I still upheld better than average grades. A great example of how I feel about school is the fact that I took AP United States History and ended with a 90 overall in the class, but got a 1 on the AP test. That right there is one of the reasons I believe I'm not good at school because I was a good student, but simply because it's so easy to do the bare minimum to get high grades, and I wasn't ever invested in anything I was doing. Because of this mindset, I decided to attend a community college instead of university, and I made this decision because I wasn't confident in my own academic abilities. I never was. I went to feel the waters and to see if I was actually capable. However, back to my timeline. Me and this person were friends for a good year or so. I would wait for them in the mornings, and we had many carpools, almost daily for a while. This eventually developed into my first and only crush I've ever had. And now we're kind of reaching the territory where it's like, yeah, it's way more difficult and awkward to talk about for me. Small tangent to kind of help that. For those who don't know, I currently identify as gray, aromantic, and demisexual. To be gray, aromantic means to experience romantic attraction at a far less frequency than what is considered normal. I'm saying that with heavy quotation marks. And to be demisexual means to only experience sexual attraction to those who you have formed close emotional bonds with. However, these, like most orientations, are an umbrella, and if you don't conform to specifically what I just said, then there's nothing wrong with that. You could still be either, but fall into different categories. Everyone's different. And I just explained them how it relates back to me. I identify as gray aromantic because I've never had a crush before or since this one crush I experienced when I was around 15 years old. And having this crush was where the downfall for my friendship began with this person. It wasn't immediately. I took rejection well, but over a slow, gradual amount of time, I personally felt unsatisfied with our friendship and wanted more. And this goes right back to my egocentrism at the time, my selfishness, the point in time where both online and in real life, I would think of myself and only myself. I became angry without basis, I doubled down, and before I knew it, I again lost the closest people in my life. Summer came and went, and I went into my junior year of high school completely empty. Jumping forward in time a bit to 2023, this is when I became really involved in the Minecraft speedrunning community and got to know dozens of people. When it came to the MCSR community though, in hindsight, being in that community didn't do me any favors. I remember most of the people I was around weren't pleasant, and for a complete lack of any other description, it just seemed like that people tried way too hard to aura farm. Present day, I have quit MCSR and stopped talking to almost everyone there because it was not a pleasant community. And when I return to streaming on my own, I want to foster a much different community. A good friend of mine a few years ago later said that he knew I was just hanging with the wrong crowd, that he knew I wasn't actually the way I was. And I agree with him. Masking turned into something real, you know? I was barely even myself in that community because I was worried people wouldn't like the real me. And that was definitely true sometimes. When word that I had fucked up in a different community surfaced, people there didn't take the word seriously, and that got to my head. I let the people who couldn't see that I was wrong brainwash me to thinking I hadn't actually done anything wrong, that I was the one being harassed. I was being encouraged by multiple people to report media about me, and I agreed with it. I doubled down again on the horrible things I did to people, and worse, I did it publicly, with baseless arrogance and terrible behavior. This was by far the lowest low I'd ever been at, and I'm happy that basically overnight, I knew how miserably bad of a person I was. So in late July of 2023, I organized a discussion with the online friend group that ghosted me, and I sought to acknowledge every one of my wrongdoings and answer any questions they had. And ever since that day, I have felt free and maybe not fully forgiven, but closure was achieved on that side of my life. I never understood why every internet influencer has such bad apologies where they do literally everything besides be specific in what they did and truly own up, because if they are good people, then why not just do that? I feel like you aren't as good of a person as you think you are if instead of being truthful about your mistakes, you bend the truth to make yourself seem better. And as a result, you just end up looking a lot worse. It's clear you're only apologizing to save face when you know you're gonna lose the respect of a lot of people and will stop watching you as a result, regardless of what you say. So, in my opinion, it's just better to go out good rather than bad. I'm not going to devolve into a full-on discussion about cancel culture because it is not something that will ever change, but no matter what terrible or even illegal things people do, they have the right to seek help and improve their own life. If whatever they did is on their criminal record, then that's obviously no one's fault but their own. But no one's life is ever over, and no one is ever guaranteed to stay evil forever. I think true evil is a lot rarer than people think, and I'm never one to point at someone and believe they are intentionally malicious. I believe that people can change no matter how bad their actions, because I've been there and done that. But that's a debate that's going to be raging on the internet for decades. Now, where does that leave me? After the summer of 2022, I entered junior year feeling completely empty. Around a month in, and I attended an outside event where we walked around the building. One of the staff attempted conversation with me, and I remember being completely apathetic and dead inside. We spoke for a bit, and she gave me an opportunity to be a part of a club called Equity. And this is where I begin to find my true identity. Being a part of this club made me feel alive again, and like I had a purpose beyond just doing the bare minimum in school. As a group, we would host activities like candygrams, door decoration contests, and my personal favorite was teaching a class about a unique topic with a fun activity with it, like integrity. I had experience being the center of attention, which helped me be a good voice when doing these activities, and for the first time in my school life, I had been able to let my personality shine in a much more positive and impactful way to others, and to also keep myself busy with many activities that I actually found fun. Through Equity, I joined other clubs at my high school, like the Student Council, and we hosted my absolute favorite event. When Easter rolled around, it was our job to put candy in eggs and hide them all over the classrooms on the floor. We would have eggs with clues relating to the teachers or a unique item on the floor that would point students to find a golden egg with a gift card inside. And man, that was so much fun. This was truly the best part of school. I had so much fun. The one thing I did the most though is every morning I would be the voice of the school. Along with staff and a few other students, I would be informing people about the upcoming day, and I would look forward to it all the time. To spice it up, I came up with a brand new adjective to say. Instead of having just a good day, it would be, I hope you have a fantastic day. Then it would be a mysterious day. Then it would be a sunny, impeccable, outlandish, funky, silly, extravagant day. My goal every morning was to make hundreds of people happy and to look forward to the day, no matter what was going on. There were definitely people that found me annoying. For one, in my opinion, my voice can be annoying. And when I said that my peers never liked me growing up, that never really changed even in high school. I felt more disliked than liked, but I've grown up enough to know that these people's opinions do not matter at all to me. And once you realize that, that is so freeing. During these years of finding my real-life identity, I also grew into my own gender identity. And yeah, I do want to touch on this too, because it's also an important part of my life that I never usually talk about. I identify as non-binary with no extra strings attached. By definition, I'm agender, but I never use that label on myself. The reasons for why are, for one, because growing up, I simply never conformed to the typical male. I hope you can hear those quotation marks. And when I was still very young, I would cry a lot. And for some reason, my parents took a lot of issue with this. Learning to grow thicker skin is an important life lesson that everyone needs to know. But not only was I still between the age of 7 and 13, my parents would always be angry telling me this, and to this day I never understood why, because It always put fear in me, and I never felt comfortable sharing when I was sad or crying because I never felt that I would get support out of it. Hearing the cliche "boys don't cry" phrase also made me feel stupid for even daring to cry. Guys, crying is an absolutely amazing thing we're capable of doing. A good cry helps wash the soul clean. Something I always tell people is that it's okay to cry. It's good to cry. It's better to cry than to hold back the emotions that make you feel the need to cry, because crying is one of the biggest signs of humanity within someone for me, no matter if it's a happy or a sad cry. Another reason I don't identify as male is because I have way less male friends than any other friends, and that's because growing up I didn't find many men pleasant. I know it sounds weird, but that's just my experience. I didn't feel comfortable identifying as a man because, to me, the idea of a man was to be unpleasant and other things, and I didn't want to be that way. But I am not transgender either, because being trans was just never my cup of tea. I am not overly masculine or overly feminine, and I do not enjoy society's gender roles. This is who I am, and between the age of 15 and 19, I was discovering this and so many other traits and sides of myself so fast. After high school was done, I haven't really followed up on what made my high school experience so enjoyable. You'd think I'd become interested in public speaking or theater or anything related to what I was doing, but no. What interested me the most is psychology, and that is what I am studying today. Up until the beginning of junior year of high school, so when I was around 17, I still didn't know what I wanted to do with my life at all, and it felt like I was running out of time fast. College applications were being shoved down everyone's throats, and it put a lot of pressure on me on how I'm even going to navigate my life going forward. When I took a psychology class, just out of curiosity in my senior year, it was so much more in-depth and interesting than what I could have imagined. I was finally intrinsically motivated in my schoolwork, and I've decided that I want to do something related to psychology. I'm far from knowing specifically what though. While that does scare me a little, it also makes me happy because I get to tell people that it's okay to not know what you're gonna do for the future, because I'm 19 today and I still am not 100% certain. But it will come to you, maybe slowly or maybe in a flash like it did for me. I was convinced after a lot of persuasion to go to my prom. I didn't see a reason to go to prom. I did have more friends now, yeah, but I personally didn't see the appeal of going. Very last minute, however, I was convinced. I bought myself a nice pink suit and I arrived at the venue. And there I met someone I haven't seen in over 2 years, someone who I know I fucked up with, and it was awkward the first few hours for me. I just kept my mouth shut because all of the past history. Eventually in my head, I thought to go up to this person and simply wholeheartedly apologize, since I never got the opportunity to do that all those years ago. I gathered up courage with absolutely zero expectations and said what I wanted to say to them. And to my surprise, not only did they forgive me, but they asked me to be friends again. Guys, I've dealt with having to live with my own mistakes for years, but it felt so good to feel forgiven for the first time in my life. This was also the first moment where I felt someone wanted to be friends with me for who I was. Across all the friends I've gathered, I was the one to make first action or conversation, so I never felt that someone actually wanted to be friends with me. But this was awesome to experience for the first time. For the rest of prom, I was on cloud 9 and enjoyed myself to the fullest. And when the sun had set, I had been more motivated than ever to continue being as good of a person I used to be, polar opposite from a selfish asshole I was years ago. And this is how I live my life. The world we live in is always full of miserable things to think about every day. The climate of politics, the climate, period, our own individual and specific situations or stressors that need our attention, the little things that we know don't matter but get to us anyway. I attempt to live life happily, not in ignorance of the world, but in spite of it. I don't get why there are so many people who hate so much, being toxic, unpleasant, and people who spend every single day of their lives always being miserable. It rubs off on other people, and it's like a wildfire of toxicity that spreads forever. I never got that. My philosophy on life is to try to live life spreading the opposite. If there's an option between kindness or crudeness, I always try to pick kindness. And I also try to give people small compliments every now and then, even if they seem unnecessary, because compliments go a long way. I say these things to make people remember that there is always good in the world and that there's always good in themselves. I'm going to ask you that after you're done listening to me, that you message or talk to someone you haven't spoken to in a while and share your appreciation. Or give a small compliment to your close or even distant friends. Kindness is contagious, and it will spread the more you give your kindness to other people. And I want to foster a community where everyone spreads good vibes to each other. This has been my life, and I want to continue this. More recently, I've also become hyper-aware of myself and my own actions, to the point where I forget to set my own boundaries sometimes in favor of always doing what I think is best for everyone else besides me, even if it's unhealthy. If there's ever a mistake brought up to me, I avoid being selfish and blaming other people, and this approach might seem exhausting, and it is, but it has helped me a lot, and it's simply just how I've been living, and it works well. I use this approach when interacting with my new friend, and I got into all sorts of shit they recommended to me, one of which being Omori. Now, I've actually considered doing a whole script on my thoughts on Omori and what Omori did to me as a person, but it's relevant here because it brings up one of the biggest problems I've suffered most recently, and that is a never-ending need to hate myself. As made evident by spilling my life for the past 30 minutes, I've done things I'm not proud of, and these things have eaten at me for years. I've despised myself, and I could never forgive myself even if others forgave me. Omori broke me as a human being because never before have I related so much to one character in any media. Having one or multiple catastrophic events in your life, all at your own hands, and having to sit with that, with the blood on your hands for years and even decades, and it becomes nearly impossible to love yourself. And over the majority of this timeline, I have indeed hated myself for all that I've done to others, and I didn't think I would ever stop. On the opposite side of the coin though, 2024 ended up being fantastic for me. This was around the time I had the idea of this very project. However, back then, I wouldn't have had nearly enough to talk about to fill all that time. But even if I didn't, I willingly pushed my Eon project aside for my next birthday, because my life had changed so much, so fast, in just the span of 2 months. I had the closest friends I've ever had in my life, and every day was so active and eventful and fun. I was getting into so many new games and media. I'd gotten into old media that I had rediscovered. I was slowly becoming more active outside. In November, I went to my very first Splatoon LAN, and it was the best decision ever. The first time was feeling the waters, and I didn't meet any new people immediately, but as I went to more of these events, I gained so many new friends so fast, and all of those people are still my friends today and may even be listening to this right now. If you are, I truly love all of you. As great as my life was, something felt off. I could feel a sense of coldness in the air coming from somewhere, like a fuzzy cloud looming over my head that, when looked at directly, was attempting to render an image, but couldn't quite make it, leaving a blurry and messy silhouette. Fuzzy clouds are what I like to call those moments in any relationship where you are so uncertain. Even if things seem fine on the outside, you have a gut feeling within you that tells you it's not. And it's the most painful thing you can ever feel, like a pit in your stomach. This is why communication is the #1 most important thing in the world to me. Being clear and honest with not only other people, but with yourself. Doing a mental check-in on everyone. The mindset I have on life now with my hyper-awareness has resulted in a world that doesn't really react to me anymore, but instead I react to the world. And this is how I like it, because I don't act on my own. I respond to everything as it happens to me naturally rather than wanting anything for myself. I don't ever do things for myself anymore. I was asked to play this, I was asked to do that. I let the world play out while still being fully aware of any possible thing that can go wrong or that I can do wrong, to avoid falling into that pit of selfishness again. It caused me to never be sure about anything that happens anymore. I'm never sure as to what's right from wrong, who's right or wrong. The last thing I want is to villainize or discard anyone's thoughts, even in their absence. And while I can look to my past and be certain that I was wrong, it's so difficult now. Nothing is in black and white anymore. Everything is so complicated and unclear, and there's never one set path on anything, and it stresses me out so much. It kept getting colder and colder, and I didn't know why. It felt like I was losing my touch, or maybe the freezing temperature was making me believe that about myself. As much as I promote communication, I hesitated on talking until it was far too late. I tried to let time heal, but it only made everything so much worse. I couldn't force myself to be happy anymore. I couldn't do anything. I was at the mercy of the world that I sold my soul to, letting it carry my decisions down a path that I didn't choose for myself. I let that river take me, and it left me flowing on my own, where it diverged without my protest. And suddenly, it felt like the world was crumbling again, as if I was back at square one. Did I ever truly change? What could I have done differently? Where did I go wrong? How do I prevent this? How am I supposed to feel? It always comes back to me. It caused me to... It caused me to hate myself. Oh, I hate myself. I fucking hate myself. To love myself. On February 21st of this year, I attended my very first therapy session. I was mortified of getting therapy for years. It was always something that suggested to me by almost all of my friends for more than just bad habits, and for my tendency to hate myself beyond reason. To me, the scariest part of getting therapy was needing to come clean to my parents that I have a problem, because I still live with my parents, and my parents have obviously been absent for all of my online life, so they never knew exactly what was going on, and I never wanted them knowing because I knew it would disappoint them just as much as I disappointed myself. Another scary aspect was actually having to meet the therapist for the first time. Like, how would we even start, is what I asked. This person is going to meet me, and then I'm going to tell them everything that's wrong with my life? Like, that's crazy. I was worried it was going to be awkward, and then that I would, lock up, and I wouldn't be able to speak. So many factors have gave me overwhelming fear to get a therapist for years, but I got therapy after a straw that broke the camel's back, I went to my parents at one of the lowest points in my life, and I told them that I needed therapy. My father helped me find an office within my insurance, and it has been the best decision I ever made. At the time I'm reading, I would have completed 6 whole months of therapy now, which is crazy to me because it hasn't even felt like that long. I can't speak for everyone, but when I thought of therapy, I thought of something I needed to fix within myself. But now that I'm 6 months in therapy, it has just become one of my support systems, my strongest support system. Some of you will probably relate when I say this, but when a friend tells me, you can talk to me about anything, whenever I actually do end up talking about any problems that I have this thought in the back of my mind that despite their confirmation, that I am still bothering them. There is a good reason for this thought. You know, most people aren't equipped to handle that kind of venting. People can listen, but they will more than likely become overwhelmed and not know how to react or respond. They may feel helpless to assist you, and more often than not, if someone says they can handle it, they may end up second guessing themselves. Therapy has been so useful for me because I cut that burden on other people, and all my thoughts go to my therapist, you know, a third party who isn't my friend, family member, or coworker, but someone who has been trained on how to be this exact person for other people. There is no one in this world that would not benefit from therapy in some way. If you are afraid of getting therapy, listen to me when I say it will be one of the best decisions you will make in your life. The first session will be hard. Well, for me it was. I can't speak for everyone. But it came naturally to me, and it can for you as well. And you will eventually find a great partnership for the next few months and hopefully years. To everyone who already does have therapy, I'm proud of you, and I hope you've gotten the change that you wanted in your life. On a similar topic, one day I was commuting home from college, and I found one of the students I knew from my senior year of high school. We weren't really close friends at any capacity, but we always saw each other. We knew we existed. We had a great conversation on the bus. Something that resonated with me was that he spoke about the indomitable human spirit. How we all as humans, even in the absolute lowest of lows we hit, we climb out stronger people than when we fell in. This conversation inspired me greatly because I know dozens of people who have gone through an event in their life so devastating that I couldn't imagine how they get out of it. But then I realized that they just do, you know? We can be so low, and yet we'll always find our way out. That's inspiring to me. If you are out there or at any point feel like the world is crumbling around you, time is your best friend. Time is always moving, and it will pull you out of there, and you will become someone greater. Never give up on yourself, you know? Also, something I've been doing recently is I've been doing more generally healthy activities. Since my semester ended, I have returned to my original New Year's resolution of walk 2 times a week, and it has been fantastic for my mental health. Unsurprisingly, I don't know if you could tell, but I haven't really touched grass a lot in my life ever since I've changed that about myself this year. I've felt powerful, I felt proud, I felt healthy. And I've taken the time to explore my area. I always tell my friends that it's like unlocking new parts of the map in an RPG, you know? My father was reading an article and he told me that walking for an hour is after an hour, it is quite literally impossible for you to feel stressed because all your energy is now being used to keep yourself walking. And, you know, take that with a grain of salt. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a health expert, but I can attest to this, you know? I go on walks, and if something happens that makes me upset, and I go on a walk, an hour later, I just entirely forget what I was upset about. It's kind of cool. Along with general walks, I've been going out to friend gatherings as far as New Jersey, and they've all been worth it. I've never had this much real-life social activity in ever. And meeting people who are not only awesome, but who are interested in the same shit I am. I've stepped over at a friend's house for the first time in my life, which admittedly 18 years is a little late for that, but I'm not complaining. I've gone axe throwing, been on a boat, explored the world, met great people, went to great places, and done amazing things I've never done before. The world can become so different so fast and it feels like it's been forever, but when you realize it's been a lot shorter than that, you look forward to just how much of your life you still have yet to live. Now we've reached the present day, and I am nothing but excited for the future. I love that I am almost an entirely clean slate to any new people I meet. There's no muddy history or events that I have to keep in the back of my mind, because I don't have to worry about myself. Not in like an ignorant way, but because I can confidently say to myself that I've grown up and I know so much better than I ever used to. I'm excited to return to streaming. You may have noticed, but it has been over 3 months since I posted or streamed anything, which is by far the longest I've ever gone without posting. But after I am complete with this project, I will go back to doing what I've always loved to do. I'm gonna spend time with everyone I love. I'm gonna build a community again. And I've thought about what I'd change after I return to streaming. I want to be more positive in general. Like, I want to be more just active when I talk, and also maybe be a bit more family friendly. I don't know about that one though. I'm just gonna play it as I go along. Longtime streamer and friend Vic Vion has streamed for years, and she has the blueprint I kind of want to follow. She's very positive and happy and good streamer. So that's kind of how I want to go in the direction. And I could not be more excited to go to more in-person events too and meet so many more amazing people. You know, one of those people maybe even watching this right now. And I have made so many amazing friends all along my journey. Shy, Lucas, Jack, Aubrey, Jay, in the second J, Myhla, Almond, and the people who have stuck by my side for so long. Speed, Chubbs, Cake, Isa, Chloe. I wish I could go through the whole list of everyone in my life that has made it worth living, but I'd go beyond the time I have left. To every person in my life, you've been a crucial part to me being the person that I love to be, and I couldn't be more grateful. We have almost reached the end, so I like to preface my reaction to beating Eon. You know, this entire project has been in the works for over a year and a half, and I always had ideas and plans on what to talk about, and I knew I'd be saving it for a birthday. Today is my 19th birthday, so that's kind of the deadline that has stressed me out for a long time. You may recall how I said earlier how I used to cry a lot when I was younger, but that isn't the case anymore. My best guess as to how often I cry would be around 1 to 2 times in a whole year. However, when I clear the last jump in Eon, I have the biggest cry I have ever had in my life. The pressure and anticipation I put on myself in this project has ate at me for all that time. And beating Eon represented a new era of my life, one after the dust has settled and I've taken a new fresh start. But more than all of that, when I beat Eon, my life came flooding back to me. All the memories of all the friends I've ever had, and the ones I do now. My journey as a person, the wild stories I could tell for hours if I wanted to. I saw all of that at once, and my emotions took over everything. My biggest project had finally come to an ending. I have said everything I have wanted to say. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for hearing my voice and being a part of my life. With everything now behind us, I hope you have a wonderful evening, and please enjoy the last 10% of Eon. No, no, this isn't real. This isn't real. No way. No, no, this isn't real. No. Oh my god. I can't believe it. I have been at this level for a year and a half. This is the biggest project I've ever undertaken in my life. I can't believe it. Thank you. Thank you for making it to the end. I love you, and I will love you forever.